Hey, it's Tony Brueski, and this is our week in review over the weekend, taking a look back at some of the most compelling conversations and stories that we've covered for you of the last week. Brand new episodes back Monday morning, bright and early, 5 a.m. here on the podcast.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski,
featuring attorney, guest, and former felony prosecutor Eric Fadis.
Some new precedents that seem to be being set in the courtroom of parents being charged for the crimes of their children, specifically focusing on incidents where there are child shooters. A lot of this started with the Michigan case, James and Jennifer Crumbley, just now being cleared the other week to stand trial for their role in their son who picked up that firearm that was given to him by their parents, and then took the lives of so many. Number one, I'm kind of surprised that it's taken all these years for this to really kind of get into the spotlight, or someone to make this attempt. Where do you think this could go? And could this really change the dynamics going forward, when inevitably there's going to be more shootings, and the accountability not just lying there within the hands of the shooter, the child, in many cases that we're talking about, but also the parents and their role of responsibility in cases like this?
Yeah, Tony, as we've seen, there's this emerging plague of school shootings in America that has really kicked up over the past couple decades or so. And I think society and prosecutors and everybody are trying to look for solutions to try and prevent this. And they've looked at firearm regulations. They've looked at, sentencing of the actual shooter. And we still have this problem. So I think the prosecutors are pressured to sort of take it to the next level and say, who else can we try to hold accountable for what's happened, in hopes that it will have a deterrent effect on these horrible atrocities in the future. Now, we've got to be careful with that because, sometimes the best intentioned zealots get into sticky situations and take measures that aren't beneficial for the rest of society, and that could actually harm people who don't necessarily deserve to be harmed. So I think this is a trend that is emerging in terms of trying to also hold parents and other parties involved responsible for these school shootings, but we've got to make sure that it doesn't get too misguided to where we are simply scapegoating other people because we have this horrible problem that we don't know how to fix yet.
And I think that's one of the big questions is what is the line there? What is the line where we look at holding some of these parents responsible versus not? I mean, it seems fairly cut and dry in the Michigan case, the James and Jennifer Crumbley. We're talking about parents who knew their child had mental health problems, but then still willingly went out and got him an automatic weapon. That seems, you should be tried for that. It's like providing the gun to a killer, which is exactly what they did. But we think of that more so in some sort of organized crime way, or some sort of plot that the people who get the gun are actually plotting and part of being involved in. When you have those cases, though, where it's not so cut and dry, how do we determine that? Do we charge every parent that has a child that has mental health problems that somehow finds a way to get their hands on a weapon and goes and kills people? Or do we have to be more cautious? What is that line where we take a look and say, yes, you do hold some responsibility here?
When it comes to criminal prosecution, and especially emerging trends that in prosecuting people whom we didn't used to prosecute in a similar situation, I think we've got to at least have caution in mind, but certainly something has to be done. And when we have material involvement by other parties, when we have another party that took a step without which the school shooting or whatever incident wouldn't have occurred, I think at that juncture, you really do have to look at, are criminal charges warranted for other individuals involved, such as parents? Now, material involvement and some sort of causal link, I think those are important factors. Those are a bit squishy, and prosecutors might be able to apply those terms to folks who don't deserve it, or folks who do deserve it might be able to slither out of it by manipulating those terms as well. But I think that material involvement and causal relationship to the ultimate incident are important factors in terms of where that line is drawn and who should be prosecuted and under what circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, I mean, every case that they're going to go after is going to work on, I guess, setting that bar. I'm sure the bar may be pushed from case to case. Another one that we saw, the mother of an 11-year-old who managed to get a gun out of his mom's car. He knew where it was. It was unlocked, able to be accessed. Went out onto a football field just the other week and then shot at some of the people that he was having a conflict with, other children. Thankfully, no one was murdered, but the mother now being charged with second-degree misdemeanor, fairly light charge for the reckless endangerment that actually went on. I'm surprised that was not the charge against her. Is this all just so new at this moment in time of the idea of going after the parents immediately that we're going to see kind of bizarre charges or light charges until this is, I guess, more in stone or more of the way that we handle these sort of things?
Yeah, I think we're going to see things all across the board, which, like you said, Tony, is what we've been seeing. And that's a problem, too, because we need to have an even-handed administration of justice, and we need to have a public who knows what to expect and knows what the laws are. And if they transgress them, they at least have a sense as to what their consequences might look like. Here, like you said, we've got Ethan Crumbley's parents charged with homicide, involuntary homicide. And then we have this other situation where the parent is charged with a misdemeanor. That's not even-handed administration of justice. Perhaps it is on our legislatures to respond to this emerging trend of trying to hold other folks responsible and see exactly, carve out a law that states, under what circumstances the parent can be charged and with what those consequences could be. Because right now we've kind of got, everything all over the place. And that is not the best state of the law. And it's certainly not the best way to address this ongoing societal issue.
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, and just from an honest standpoint and perspective, we obviously have penalties out there for people who commit crimes. We have penalties for murder. We have penalty for robbery. We have penalty for all different crimes, but those don't necessarily deter those that are going to make poor decisions and commit some sort of crime. Do you think that this kind of new precedent, this new way of thinking is going to do anything in terms of changing the way parents who have weapons in the house? I mean, most of us who do, that are responsible, they're locked up, they're safe, and it's really something that we don't even worry or think about because they are so secured from our children. But others, they have more of a lax attitude on that sort of thing. Will punishing change that mindset in any sort of mass way as we continue to go down this road?
Tony, I'm not overly hopeful that it would. We look at, in my opinion, and it's a little bit jaded based on, being a prosecutor and then defense attorney and just seeing sort of the whole gamut, is that the law is pretty reactive and it's not necessarily effective at deterring future behavior. You look at, does a gang member who wants to commit a drive-by against a fellow gang member really contemplate mandatory minimums in determining whether he or she is going to do that? The vast majority of times, no. And so, we look at some of these school shootings, and oftentimes the parents are either absent or, functionally absent and not overly involved in the kids' lives, and or they're irresponsible, or that they are responsible and they just couldn't do anything to prevent it. And so, is this really going to change how parents parent if we have a law that says, if your kid shoots up a school, you're going to get in trouble? I'm not overly confident that it's going to have a deterrent effect like that. But I think it is the duty of the legislature to at least try. And to at least make an effort at it, have a public awareness campaign, and not only scaring parents into, trying to prevent this if they can, but also trying to encourage these parents to make better choices or utilize other resources. And so I think that it's really going to have to be a collaborative effort that doesn't involve just a change in the law. That won't be enough. Yeah,
I mean, it's such a tough issue. It's one of those things where there are no one answer fits all. But it seems when we have all these little pieces and all these little answers, quite often society dismisses them. I mean, look at gun control laws and such. The argument, what's not going to change anything? They already got the guns out there. And I can understand that. But I can also understand, let's create some speed bumps here. Let's create, and I'm not trying to get political on anything about gun control laws, but like making things a little more restrictive would probably slow some down. Making some laws where parents are held responsible would probably slow some down. And if we put enough speed bumps there, maybe we'll get a couple cars that'll bottom out before they actually get to the place they're trying to go, versus just, well, here's the open road. We have nothing we can do to stop it.
I feel you. And in terms of how egregious the ultimate outcome is, my gosh, if we can put a few speed bumps and it stops one of these, that itself is a tremendous victory. So even though there are challenges, even though the law is not always as responsive or fair as we like, or as effective in preventing bad behavior in the future, like I said, it's a duty of the legislature to at least try to continue thinking of solutions that are legal in nature. Perhaps there's a mental health component. Perhaps there's a public awareness component. Perhaps there's a parenting component. And I think instead of taking a piecemeal approach, it might be best to have a more comprehensive legislative solution that involves not only a change in the law, but additional resources, additional education, and to try to come at this thing comprehensively, I think could have the best success.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial free.
So you can binge on true crime
Until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.